Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served Warzone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story.
They were pinned down from a Dishka, and the Dishka was coming from the third story of a 7-story apartment building. And then we blew that third story out within maybe a minute and a half or 2 minutes of getting that 9-line.
Hey everyone, Laszlo Montgomery here with another special episode. I have Dr. Álvaro Sanz with me today, all the way from historic España. Álvaro is the content design coordinator at Paradox Tinto, a development studio in Barcelona and part of Paradox Interactive. Álvaro also holds a PhD in medieval studies as well, so anything you want to know about Alfonso X of Castile? Well, Álvaro's your guy. I should start by saying I worked with Paradox Interactive this past year on a project for their new History Lessons DLC, which we'll get to later on. And to my CHP listeners who have no idea what I'm talking about already, DLC is downloadable content. That's additional content created for an already existing game. And I think some CHP listeners are thinking, Yep, we're talking about historical grand strategy gaming this time. So we're also going to talk about that, as well as the greater strategy gaming industry, of which no small number of CHP listeners are active players of these games. So this industry is massive, and these strategy games are something that bridges the world of video gaming and history like nothing I've ever seen. So let me introduce my guest, Álvaro Sanz. Álvaro, welcome to the CHP.
Hello, Laszlo. Hello, everybody, and thanks for the invitation.
Now, before we get to all the new DLC, can you first tell me about yourself and about Paradox Interactive?
So, I'm currently working at Paradox Tinto, a studio close to Barcelona in Spain. We are part of a bigger company, Paradox Interactive, which is specialized in strategy games mainly. And we have different brands of different video game sagas, which we are running. And currently at Paradox Tinto, we are working on Europa Universalis 4, which is a game that covers early modern world from the 15th century to 19th century, so almost 400 years of history.
Is it necessary to have a history background to play these games? If you're very well-read in world history, might that put you at a distinct advantage over someone playing these games who never cracked open a history book?
Not at all, because our main objective is making fun games. So our players can have historical knowledge, they can have history as a hobby, as let's say someone that hears this podcast, or maybe not, and they are looking for new experiences in gaming, so they approach to our games and find something which is new to them.
What is the ultimate goal in these grand strategy games? Is it to conquer the world? Is it all expansion, warfare, and diplomacy?
So we have a motto in our company, which is we make the games, you make the story. So what we want our players is to enjoy the experience, and there are very different approaches about how to play our games. So for instance, in Europa Universalis 4, you are running a country in the modern age, but most of the countries were very different to each other. So that means that the player can do very different things with the different countries, or even with the same country.
Okay, so you just mentioned Europa Universalis 4, the game we worked on together. How many active users worldwide? And isn't this the biggest thing you produce at Paradox?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest brands. So recently we released DLC, Domination, and we had peaks of 30,000 to 40,000 concurrently users in Steam, but it is not all the players that we have. We have hundreds of thousands of players which play our game monthly, because people play on weekends, or sometimes they have at the nights, or we have very different time zones, because our games are global. We have players from all the continents, so just hundreds of thousands of players.
Are all the games played in English, or can you use other languages?
Mainly English is the base language of the game. Currently, we have translation to 3 languages, which are French, German, and Spanish. Other games from our company have translations to other languages as well, to Japanese, to Korean. For Europa Universalis, for instance, we do not have translation for, let's say, Chinese, but one of the most popular mods, which means modifications of the game, which are made by our community and uploaded to Steam store, so everybody can play it, is Chinese translation. So Chinese players can download these fan-made translations for playing the game in Chinese. But we officially are mainly supporting English.
And for my listeners who aren't gamers, can you explain what the platform Steam is and who they are in the industry?
Yes, it's a really good question. Some years ago, the standard for playing video games were CDs. You bought a physical CD and installed the game and played it. From a few years, we have digital stores from where you buy the games and you download it and play it, and the game is not physically on your house, but it's kept at the digital cloud. So there are a bunch of stores, of digital stores. The most popular and our main partner is Steam, but we are working with other stores as well. We are working for Microsoft Store, we are working for Epic Games Store, and we also have the Gaming Great Old Games Store. So for the listeners of our podcast, you can go to any of these stores, look for the game, buy it, and download it and play it.
So let's get to the new stuff. Back in 2017, you released the Mandate of Heaven DLC. Let's talk about Mandate of Heaven, the Ming Dynasty, and the new DLC that I worked on with your team. So can you introduce that?
Yes, sure. Europa Universalis 4 is a game which this year is doing 10 years of development, so it's the 10th year anniversary, and it has had different iterations through this time, obviously, to keep it alive. Mandate of Heaven was a DLC which was released a few years ago. So it added mechanics to play on East Asia. The most important one has the same name of the DLC, the Mandate of Heaven, which is the system of government of China, of the Chinese Empire. One thing that is important in our game is as you are playing as a country, you are governing that country. So that means that you are ruling the government, you are driving the economy, you are managing the society, the religion, all the aspects of, let's say, a society or a country. So the Mandate of Heaven is the very specific mechanic of the Chinese Empire, which is about the Chinese emperor being an emperor and the sovereign of different countries that are kind of vassals of China. We call it tributaries because they have to pay a yearly tribute, which is more or less how the system works in real history. And there are also some mechanics about managing internally the internal situation of the Chinese empire, which is what we call gaining or losing the mandate of heaven, this concept of the Chinese emperors. So you have to deal with different events and gameplay mechanics which can make you gain or lose the mandate. And obviously, if you have a high mandate, you are in a good situation, in a good position. But if your mandate is decaying, so you are losing the mandate of heaven to the eyes of your society, you are going to be in troubles. There will be rebellions, and this can lead to dynastical change, which is something that I think that features the Chinese history for a long, long time.
So Mandate of Heaven commences in 1444, 76 years into the Ming Dynasty. Why start then?
So this is an interesting question. Europa Universalis 4 starts at 1444 because that's the date of an important battle in Europe, the Battle of Varna, which was a great victory of the Ottoman Empire. So that was made the starting date of the game. So what we did was accommodating all the different countries into that starting date because we need a historical setup. And I think that this is really interesting for us because, the name of the game has two concepts, Europa and Universalis. And I think that one thing that we've been doing in the last years is making the game more universalis, meaning that we are giving more detail to countries, regions outside of Europe. And in this case, for China, the Ming Dynasty, it's obviously not the starting point, nor the ending point of Ming Dynasty. It's more or less at the middle of its lifespan. So it's interesting because we have to somehow portray how was the decadence of that dynasty and what led to being replaced by the Qing dynasty in the 17th century, while making it interesting, while adding content to China. So this is a great challenge for us as game developers.
1444, yeah, right when the bottom fell out of the Ming Dynasty. 5 years before the Zhengtong Emperor was captured at Tumu Fortress. In playing the game, are there ways to cause events to take an alternative historical route? Can you play it in such a way as to, say, avoid things like the Tumu crisis or certain outcomes of wars?
Yes, we actually are portraying that crisis in the game with some events that the player has to face, and there's a chance of the emperor being captured by the Oirats, as happened in real life, which is not desirable. Let's put it this way.
How would someone interested to explore the delights of grand strategy gaming get started? Where's a good place to begin?
Yes, of course, because as I said, it's about the players making their stories. So there is a huge room for alternative history happening in the game because we want the players to explore different outcomes. So not only in the Tumu crisis, but let's say it has been almost 30 years since the treasure fleet expeditions by Sanz. But the player has the opportunity to retake them and put in effort, investing into doing exploration voyages with the Chinese fleet and maybe being one of the colonizing powers, let's say, of Oceania or America or Africa. That's on the player, or maybe the player just decides to stay as the hegemon of East Asia.
Yeah, after working with you and your team, I've found some of these history-based grand strategy games are just a fantastic way to draw people of all ages into the pleasures of studying and knowing all about world history. So as a game developer, how do you see these games as a gateway to teaching, learning, and informing?
That's a really good question. So the first step will be looking for going to one of these digital stores, opening an account there, and looking for the game, Europa Universalis 4, and obviously buying it. And there are a lot of options to customize the experience, because at this point the game has had like 20 expansions after 10 years. So the easiest way is that you have different bundles, because the content of each expansion is different. Obviously, the base game can be played, and regularly we are doing free play events in the different stores. So the players, newcomers, can test the game, experience if they like it, and then probably acquiring it if they like it. We also have another option, in this case just in Steam, which is a subscription, which means that if you have the game, you can subscribe for €5 per month, and you have access to all the content.
$5 a month? For how much content?
Hours and hours and hours. I mean, the players that really love this game put hundreds and thousands of hours into it. So yes, I think that it's a good offer, to be honest. I've been playing this game for 10 years, and I definitely could recommend that as a good starting point for newcomers into the game and the experience.
Yeah, that's going to be quite interesting, because 15th, 16th century Ming officials had to do the same thing, dealing with imperial eunuchs, how to interact with them, how much to trust them at the imperial court. Players in this game will be faced with the same issues as far as their interaction with the eunuchs and trying to prevent them from bringing down the dynasty or creating instability. So interesting to simulate the history while playing the game, and at the same time see how you can do against those rascals compared to the Ming imperial court, who, well, they didn't fare too well in the end, or in the middle.
It's a great access point for people that is interested and loves history, and also to teaching history, actually. For instance, before joining Paradox, I did a PhD on the Middle Ages, as you already said in the introduction. And I was doing teaching courses at my university at Valladolid in Spain. So I had a relationship with the degree there and such. So after joining Paradox, I came back because my former colleagues wanted me to give a talk to the students about, is it possible to work on video games industry being a historian. And the first thing that I did was asking the students to that talk if they had played the game, and like 80% of the students had played the game, and all the teachers there were like kind of surprised, like, oh, so we have all these students playing this historical video game, and we did not know. Obviously, the younger teachers, we already knew that. So yes, there is the younger generations play a lot video games, and it's a new way of learning and gathering knowledge, right? So in this case, historical video games are a really great approach to historical situations, also about historical thinking, and to be honest and trying to be humble but also realistic, I think it's great that these grand strategic games that our company is doing, Paradox, makes young people to think historically and to put in the situation of a ruler or an entire society on how to manage the situation, that society. So also making strategic decisions. Let's say in the case of China, we've been creating new content for the eunuchs. They are a powerful state in the country. So it's about this situation on how do I manage these people, this state. Do I want to befriend them, keep them aligned with me? So granting them some privileges so they can cooperate, or do I want to crush them and not allowing them to develop and to be a great influence into a game? So from here comes these two things, right? Gathering historical knowledge about different countries, different cultures of the past. But there's this another thing about thinking historically, about thinking strategically, about making decisions, about thinking, hey, why did this ruler or society made this decision at this point? Let's say like when the Chinese rulers stopped doing the treasure fleet expeditions, right? Which is something that is very discussed. So this makes for people thinking about this. And another thing which I think it's interesting, because we can rewrite history and make different stories out of it. This also makes for a lot of creativity, right? People want, our players like doing different things and playing in a creative way. So looking for different situations and outcomes. Yes, we also like throwing challenges to a player. So let's say in 1444, you can start playing as a Jurchen Manchu tribe. And we know that they ended up building the Qing Dynasty in the later half of the period. But in 1444, they are not a big country. So this is also a challenge for the players to think about, hey, how am I going to do to create the Qing Dynasty, the Qing Empire, to conquer China, to establish my ruler as the new emperor of China, to hold the mandate of heaven. So yes, and the other part is that this is fun. This is fun because of that. Our players play our game because playing history, we try to make it fun to play history or replay history. That's really important. Replaying it.
Yeah, it's a great way to not only learn about the Ming Dynasty in China, but also educational in teaching about the many polities on the periphery of China. Dai Viet, the Khmer Empire, Lansang, Ayutthaya, to name a few. Through playing this game, you also get to know a little bit about those places as well.
Yes. There are good examples, like playing as Korea or Dai Viet. It's doable, and it makes for a really interesting experience on how to deal with the Chinese Empire, because they are at the periphery, and in the case of Dai Viet, it starts as a tributary after a long history of fighting with Chinese armies. So that's also a challenge. And again, we have different possibilities for the player, because the player can stay as independent states, expand or not into other regions. But there's also a chance, which is alt historical, for playing with Korea or Tibet and conquering parts or chunks of China and eventually taking the mandate. So, because we thought at some point, okay, if there was a Mongol Chinese dynasty, which was the Yuan dynasty in the 13th century, and there was a Manchu Chinese dynasty, the Qing dynasty, why not a Korean Chinese dynasty or a Vietnamese Chinese dynasty? So giving more possibilities to the player to write different stories.
So by playing the game in a certain way, you could delay the fall of the Ming or prevent the Manchu takeover? That's quite interesting to be able to extend the lifespan of the Ming Dynasty beyond 1644.
Yes, of course. It's one of the starting challenges. Start as the Ming Dynasty. So there's apart from the different situations, there is a ticking disaster in the game about the fall of the Ming Dynasty. So that's also a challenge. It's not set on stone that the dynasty has to fall, but it can progress, recover the situation, and maybe going all the way into the 17th and 18th centuries as a great power of the world. And then the player will have more decisions, more opportunities, like do I keep growing just in China, or maybe I expand the country and the mandate to neighboring regions, let's say not only to Korea or Tibet, which are neighboring, or the Tibet, but also let's say to Japan, because the relation between China and Japan has always been very intense. So there's a tension in that historical relationship, which the player can solve with very different options by conquer, but also by alliance. So that's on the hands of the players.
How do game developers such as yourself balance historical accuracy with the enjoyment and experience of playing the game? That's a very fine line.
Oof. Yes, it's we are living in the edge, right? And also we have to take into account a lot of different situations. So we obviously have a baseline historical situation, which is what happened in history. Obviously, we can interpret it in very different ways, but there's some narrative that you want to cover, and from there, it's about let's create opportunities for the player to do different things. So let's say, for instance, another possibility is in the fall of the Ming Dynasty, at some point becoming one of the warlords that were present in the 17th century fall of the Ming Dynasty and before the Qing establishment. So that's another historical situation that the player can cover. But yes, and apart from that, all the history is usually present history, right? So if we create something about China conquering Japan and Japan conquering China, let's say, we have to be careful because people is going to think sometimes on a very contemporary way. So it's like, there is a line of a branch of content about Japan overtaking China and incorporating it into a Japanese empire. So that sounds a bit like 20th century, right? But we are actually giving different opportunities for modern age. That's what we like to focus. But also in history, I think that a lot of different outcomes come from random events happening at some point. So yes, there are structural events going its way, but sometimes things change. Let's say in the case of Japan, there was this invasion of Korea at the end of the 16th century. Japan could have won that war and incorporate Korea to the shogunate, to the Japanese shogunate rule. What would have been the relationship between Japan and China if Korea would have been incorporated into Japan? That opens a lot of different possibilities.
Are there any players in China playing the Mandate of Heaven?
Yes. We actually are releasing this in the past weeks another DLC, Domination, in which we have reviewed this content for China and the Mandate. We had a lot of feedback from Chinese players. And
what do they say? That's a tough crowd to satisfy.
I would say mixed, because obviously Chinese players were loving to have new content to play with and to have fun with. At the same time, the content for Ming Dynasty has to be challenging and a bit punishing, right? Because we thought that the core of the content for this age and country was the crisis of the dynasty and how to deal with it. So apart from the Tumor crisis and some other things that were already in the game, we put like a lot of challenges to the player. The new eunuch state that you have to deal with. But we also created some events for floodings on the great rivers of China, and also about earthquakes, which erode the mandate of heaven. So sometimes the players thought about this like a bit punishing to them, and obviously we have to hear them and try to improve the content until we reach a point in which both parties, the game developers and the players, are happy with. But yeah, I think that overall it has been received very, very positively, because we have made new content for a region that we haven't touched since Mandate of Heaven 5 years ago. And in this case, it had been a long time, and it's refreshing to come back to the game and play again with new content.
So besides Europa Universalis 4, Mandate of Heaven DLC, what are the other popular games produced by Paradox, and what periods of history do these various other games cover?
So basically we are covering most of the history of the last 2 millennia. We are starting at ancient history. In this case, we had a game called Imperator Rome, which is covering 3 centuries of history. Not all the world. It covers mainly the Mediterranean basin up until India. So we don't have China in that game. But yeah, it's our ancient history game. Then we move into the Middle Ages with Crusader Kings. This is also a saga. The last iteration is Crusader Kings 3, which was released 3 years ago. and it covers all the Middle Ages. Again, not all the world, which is one of the things that have these games. But in Crusader Kings, for instance, they have been working on covering more and more and more of different regions of the world. So right now, China is not playable in that game, but I think that they might have some ideas in the future because they had it in the previous game, Crusader Kings 2. So let's see. Then we have Europa Universalis 4, covering from the 15th century to the 19th century. And in this case, it's the first universal game because we are covering the whole world, so you can start playing with China, but also with a tribe in Africa or some of the empires of South America, like the Incas. So this game, it's truly universalist.
Does this include the North American continent as well?
Yes, including that. In 1444, obviously what we have is a lot of native societies which the player can play with, make for a very different outcome and experience. And yeah, United States can be formed in the game, and there are ways of also of the USA becoming independent of colonizing power, let's say, as it happened in real history. Yes. After that, we have Victoria 3, which is a game that was released last year, and it covers the Victorian age and the Victorian century from 1836 to 1936. So again, this is a very different experience because it's about economic build-up, societal change. It's about the colonization, the final part of the colonization of the world, and obviously the reaction to that colonization by the European powers. So again, this is a very different experience from the previous games. After this one, we have Hearts of Iron 4, which is again covering the World War II. So this is more a war game inside our strategy games. So yes, in this case, you have a build-up to war from 1936 until when it lasts, because obviously each time each game is going to be different to the other. So the World War II is not going to be the same in its game. And finally, we have something which is not historical, but it's in the future, which is Stellaris, which is a science fiction game, and it's about space exploration and expansion. So it's all about these sci-fi tropes, like in Star Trek or Star Wars, or all the different sci-fi tropes with different species, starships. So again, a very, very different experience from all the other games. And that's our core.
Did you work on that one?
No. My job at Europa Universalis 4 is the first time doing at Paradox. But I play it a lot because it's really fun.
So anyway, the History Lessons DLC should be coming out soon. This is what we worked on together. Can you introduce that?
Of course. This is a new project that we've been working on in the last months. This is something new, not only for Europa Universalis, but for Paradox Games. So what is this project about? We work together with Laszlo and another podcaster to create history lessons for two countries, regions, which are China and Japan. So the concept of this content is, okay, people love history podcasts, podcasts but also more specifically history podcasts, and a lot of our players also love history. It's a hobby, so why not trying to match up these two different hobbies into one? So these history lessons are basically some kind of podcast episodes that the player can listen in the game about all the historical content of, let's say, China. So a player starts playing China. He or she has these history lessons and starts playing it inside the game. So while the player is playing, doing different actions, making decisions, there is this listening of the lessons, which they are very immersive for the player, because it's like, the Tumu crisis. The event has just spawned. What do I do? And you have Laszlo, in this case, telling all about the Tumu crisis, or we have other aspects about the Ming Dynasty covered in the history lessons. So again, the player is playing with Ming Dynasty and he's listening the historical situation, the historical background for that period while playing at the same time. So we think that this is a very different approach to how to mix video games and historical content, and we are very excited about this. Let's see how is it received among our playing community, but we think that we've done a good job, right, Laszlo?
Yeah, don't worry. I'm sure it'll be a bestseller. It was a great idea on your guys' part. You know, prior to your team reaching out to me last year, I hadn't a clue about this world of grand strategy games, nor the passion that people all over the world have for this hobby. To me, as a history podcaster, anything that informs people about history, I'm all for it. I think if everyone around the world knew more about each other's histories, the more understanding there'd be between nations, and one of the natural byproducts of understanding and being informed is acceptance and friendlier relations. So, Álvaro, once again, I thank you for coming on. I enjoyed working with you and with Troy and Ryan and everyone else who had a hand in our little History Lessons DLC project.
Thanks a lot, Laszlo, for the invitation, for being a guest to this podcast. I hope that our listeners, your listeners, enjoy it. This episode, and maybe some of them want to experience Europa Universalis 4 and these history lessons. Let's see. Thanks.
Europa Universalis 4 Mandate of Heaven DLC really helps to bring the Ming Dynasty to life. That's going to be it, my friends. On behalf of Álvaro Sanz, this is Laszlo Montgomery signing off from Los Angeles in El Estado Dorado. Please consider coming back again next time for another exciting episode of the China History Podcast.